All right. So why is it that I keep on talking about the Ilocano language from the Cordillera and the Lowland Ilocano? Why is it an issue? All right. So this is not planned. Most of the time I write before I make a video to have a coherent presentation on, subject matters. There's a car passing by. This one is not written at all. It just came as an idea a while ago, and then I just wanted to make this as a video. So Cordillera and Iloco versus Lowland, the original Iloco. All right. So first of all, people. Okay, the original meaning of Iloco is the language. Okay, it should mean the language. The language is Iloco, and Ilocano is the word to pertain to the person who speaks native Ilocano, and that's it. But for your information, we the Cordillerans, or generally, or many of us, refer to Ilocano as the language and the person. So it's both. As it's the same. For us, we don't use the Iloco word that much. And why is it that there's a line between the Iloco that is spoken in the Cordillera and the Iloco that is spoken in Ilocos region and Region 1? The reason behind that is we speak a different language other than Iloco. Okay, so our native language, we have a lot of native languages in the Cordillera. Okay, you can insert a Bontok, Talubin, Ayangan, Tuwali, Itnag, Kalinga, Kankanaay, Ibaloy, Kalanguya. Okay, so those are our native languages, and to add more a language which is Iloco. All right. And so to give you an example, comparing it to the Lowland Ilocano, okay, we should have, let's have the example. Okay, I went to Wright Park. I saw a cowboy. So for a normal Ilocano, you would say, Napanak ijay Wright Park, nakakita akti cowboy. That's it, right? But for us, Cordillerans, as an example myself, my parents are pure Ibaloy, all right? They would say, a typical strong accented Ibaloy would say, Napanak ijay Wright Park, nakakita akti cowboy. That is how a strong accented Ibaloy would say that line, all right? As I said, the strong accent coming from the Ibaloy language went and it is absorbed into the speaking Ilocano, all right? But that doesn't mean every Ibaloy speaks that way. And for the Kankanaay, they would say, Napanak adi ijay Wright Park, nakakita akti kuboy, somehow like that. I don't know if I got the perfect way on how can I say, but that's how they say it, because again, their accent in their native language affects the way that we speak Ilocano. All right. So I hear a lot of stories that these Ilocano friends of ours would, get confused on how Cordillerans speak Ilocano. And I also heard a lot of stories that Ilocanos think we speak the wrong words and wrong way of speaking Ilocano, but that's not the case actually. It's not wrong. All right, we are not in school. We don't speak Ilocano to have a passing grade, and if we speak the wrong, according to the rules of the Ilocano, we fail. That's not it. Okay, the purpose of having Ilocano as one of our added language in the Cordillera is to understand each other. Okay, let's get back a little bit on history. Okay, we all know that Cordillera is the only region that wasn't infiltrated by Spain in the year 1500s, 1521, up to 300 years of stay in the Philippines. Okay, while other regions in the Philippines lost everything. Okay, including the Iloco people, the Pangasinense, the Cagayan Valley people, the Tagalogs. They lost their ancestral language, their ancestral practices, traditions, and cultures. Okay, the Spanish thing Spanish traditions and everything were all inserted into their culture. But for our ancestors in the Cordillera, the Spaniards were never able to succeed in, infiltrating the region. And so the igorot culture was preserved, including the language. Okay, it was all preserved. Okay, we are one of the regions, the only places where the Philippine culture was preserved. Okay, the igorot culture. The language stayed there, the culture stayed there. So the only time that the Iloco language was able to meet the Cordilleran languages was when the Spanish people made documents that was, somehow significant, or they want to the people of Cordillera to have or to read or to understand, because they were able to build some stations in Benguet, especially Baguio and La Trinidad. That's why the name of the center of Benguet is La Trinidad. That's Spanish, right? And also Abra, because the Igorots could not understand Spanish, because every document before was in Spanish. The only people that would speak Spanish is the whole Filipinos, okay? Because imagine 300 years of being under Spanish rule, okay? Surely you would speak English. I mean, you would speak Spanish. They got the Ilocano people to be translators for the Igorots. And that's how Ilocano, the Iloco language, and the people of some of the parts of Cordillera would meet. And somehow people in the Cordillera, absorb some Ilocano words into their language, because it happened for over time and time. The second the second time that the Iloco language encountered the language in the Cordillera is the trade. Okay, the trade that happened between the Igorots and the Ilocos, the Ilocanos. Okay, in our history books, we were laid, okay, we were presented and we were written as enemies. The Igorots and the Ilocanos were enemies. That's how the history would portray us. But the truth is, it's not. The Igorots and the Ilocanos were actually best friends, okay? Before everything was, damaged by the Spanish people, they were best friends. They were trading partners. Okay, the Igorot people would trade their piece of gold into something that is useful from the Ilocano people, like the trade in Aritao and Pangasinan. It was written by the accounts of a priest, Father Antolin. Okay, he's Spanish. He had written these facts where the Igorot people would have a trade with the Ilocano people. But in history books of the Philippines, it was never written. They just portrayed us as enemies. And so, let's get back to that language. So those trades would resulted to the absorption of the Iloco language into some Cordilleran languages. Because in linguistic rule and linguistic studies, a language cannot stay as it is. Okay, it changes, it adapts. Okay, a language always changes and it adapts and it develops. So naturally, some words in the Iloco language would be absorbed into the Cordilleran languages over time. All right, and fast forward, our regional government would adapt Iloco. Okay, they adapted Iloco as our lingua franca. Okay, a lingua franca means the using of a single language in order to understand each other. Okay, imagine a Bontok Igorot would converse with a Kalanguya. Okay, would they understand each other? In fact, the Bontok and the Kalanguya, there are a lot of similarities, but the accent would make it so different. So they would not understand each other. But because the Iloco was made as a lingua franca, we were able to learn it, and they were able to understand each other as a region, okay? Like the world, the lingua franca of the world is English. So English is used in order for everybody to understand each other. In the Philippines, the lingua franca is English and Filipino. That's how we understand each other with the Visayas and the Mindanaoans and other group of people, all right? So basically, that's it. But there is a big difference between the Cordillera Iloco and the Lowland Iloco, of course. Okay? So what I'm saying here is that the Ilocano people should understand how we speak English. You should not be confused. You should not get, to think that we are speaking the wrong Iloco. But we have our own Iloco language already. It evolved. And our Iloco is heavily influenced by our own native language. My first example was that one, right? Napanak ijay right park. Nakakitak ti Koboy, all right? See how the Ibaloy speak cowboy. We would say Koboy, all right? Because C and K would be pronounced as soft, very soft. The Ibaloy is very soft, okay? They speak softly. While on the other side, Kankanay is a little bit hard, okay? Especially some of the northern Kankanays in Bangkayan and Bugyas. You would speak hard, so they would say, Napanak adi ijay right park, nakakitak ti Koboy. That's how they say it, okay? So it's heavily influenced, okay? Napanak adi ijay right park, nakakitak ti Koboy. So there's a heavy accent, there's an accent that is absorbed into the Ilocano language. So if you guys from the lowlands, from Ilocos, from La Union, Pangasinan, Nueva Vizcaya, and elsewhere, you would, observe that we speak differently. We use a different accent, and not only the accent, but also the words, okay? There are a lot of words that we use that the lowland, the Ilocano people would not use. They don't use it. Okay, for example, is the umuli, okay? Climb up, right? Climb up a tree. The Ilocano people would say umuli or kumalayat, okay? That's how you say it. But many Igorots would say kumalab, right? But if I was the Igorot, I would understand if an Ilocano person would say umuli or kumalayat. I can understand that, okay? But if I say kumalab, would that Ilocano person understand me? Yes, if he had, experiences interacting with an Igorot before. But if it was his first time, I think he'll get confused, okay? But we have a context clue, right? Context clues as we say it. If we're speaking on something and we use different words, we would understand it by the whole sentence, and we would understand how what the person there is talking about by not only using the word, but by reading, between the lines or something like that. All right. Another example is saying thank you. In the Ilocanos would say salamat. But for us, many of us Igorots would say sala salamat. We would use what I say superlative because we keep on repeating some syllables like sala salamat. That would mean like thank you very much. Another example is close. Close the door. The Ilocano people would say iserra, or yes, iserra. In a lot of us Igorots would say close. I think we don't have a direct, or we can say it in our native language, but because it's in Ilocano, we would certainly use some other terms. But I think we did not find a close word, a good word for iserra, so we adapted English. So a lot of our Ilocano also contains English. The reason behind that, the Americans stayed in the Cordillera for a very long time. The Cordillera, the Benguet, is one of the first provinces to be under civilian rule during their time, the American era. They spent a lot of time developing Baguio City. That's why we absorb English as another language too. And in fact, many Igorots can speak English better than in Filipino. And yeah, it's proven because you could see some old folks speaking in English rather than in Filipino. They can express themselves more in English than in Filipino. But that doesn't mean that we don't love speaking our own national language. We do, okay? We can, but we just had a history of American influence. That's it. Another example would be gungunam. Gungunam. But for many Igorots, they would say, we would say tamtamim. I don't know if you have that word too, but it's somehow funny. And basically, what in English, an Ilocano person would say anya, but many Igorots would say nya. Okay, A becomes E, nya. All right, and how about this? Nagado. Nagado. Igorot would say nagadugadu. That's another repetition of syllables to have an emphasis. I think Igorots are fond of emphasizing something. That when we say thank you, we'd say salamat in order to, add some sincerity, degree, something like that. Nagadugadu. And then one more example, pagbasbasaam. And many Igorots would say pag-is-eskwelaam. See, we are using the base word, okay? The base word, which is eskwela, school. And then we just kind of have the, putting it together in order to form a meaning. Pag-is-eskwelaam. I don't know if some other Ilocano people would say pag-is-eskwelaam. I think there are, but the Igorots would have that certainly. And one more funny thing is nasamit. Okay? Nasamit means, in Ilocano, Iloco, sweet, right? Sugary, sweet. But many Igorots would say naimas. All right? That will cause a confusion, especially when cooking. All right? Imagine an Igorot in an Ilocano baking something, and the Ilocano person would say, nagsamit. And then when this Igorot man tastes it, and it would say, wingarod, naimas, naima-imas. It would create a confusion to the Ilocano person. But yeah, as I said, many Igorots would mean naimas as sugary and sweet. That's the same way as naapgad. For many Igorots, they would say napait. In Iloco, napait is meaning something else, which is bitter or sour. But for Igorots, they would use that, okay? But I'm not saying everybody uses it. There are a lot of Igorots who are influenced by Iloco language, and they would have smooth Iloco language. But the typical Igorot would say that nasamit is naimas, naapgad is napait. But for the safe word, many also use naasin. I think that's better than napait. Yeah, all right. And in Iloco, they would say naimbag, or naimbag or nasayaat. But for us, we say mayat. And agulimak, or be quiet, we say tumal na. Agulimak ka, tumal na ka. Italnam. That's how we say it. All right? Kagurak. Kagurak sika. But for us, many of us, but not all, of course, we say madik sika. See the difference. All right? Kagurak sika, madik sika. Madi in Iloco. Madi, for us, haan. So please don't be confused, all right? Nasayaat nga tao. For the igorots, many igorots would say, naanos nga tao. Naano-anos nga tao. Mayat nga tao. One more funny thing is banyo. Banyo in Iloco. For us, we did not absorb banyo as our Ilocano. I mean, some maybe did absorb it, but for many of us did not. We just say digusan. Panak digusan ag digusak. And we do have also some expressions, word expressions that we get from our native languages. Like when in Iloco you say yes, when. For us we say win adi. Okay, adi is an expression from the Igorots. I think it came from the Kankanai language. Win adi. So it's an emphasis. It's an expression used to emphasize something, to give a degree, somehow like that. Win adi. Salamat adi. We also have in Iloco when ngarod. But for us we say when garud. Okay, the enye vanished. Garud, we say that. Okay, when garud, antayo garud. And lastly, a lot of Igors would say ya. Like for example, in Iloco we'd say naglamin. But for a lot of Igorots, they would say nalamilamin ya. In Iloco, nagpudot. Nagpudot, we'd say napudupudot ya. Napudot ya. Napudupudupudot ya. Alright. I do have a lot more examples, but if I continue this talking, it would be endless, okay? So the point here is that the Cordilleran language, the Cordilleran Iloco, is different from the, what I call Lowland Iloco, all right? And in Cordillera, we pertain to Ilocano as the language and the person. Okay, most of us do, all right? And despite of a lot of differences between the Ilocano that we speak and the Ilocano that the Ilocano people do speak, we understand each other, right? Okay? And I know that the Ilocano people who have a lot of experiences with the Igorots would understand completely, but the people who haven't had, a conversation with some of the Igorots would be confused on the first time, all right? For a lot of Igorots, the typical ones, they would really speak the Highland Cordilleran Ilocano, which is really based on our native language. But for some, they were exposed, okay? For me, I had a lot of experiences with Iloco, okay? When I was a kid, okay? I was born in the 90s. When I was a kid, I used to listen to the radio, because when Iloco became the lingua franca of the Cordillera, they began airing Ilocano songs and Ilocano drama, okay? The drama that we say, as we say it. I'm a big fan of radio drama of Bombo Radyo and DZWT, all right? So those are so much memorable, so much a big part of my life as a kid. Those were the first entertainment that we had before. No smartphones, no textings, no internet. Of course, internet was there before, but in the Philippines, it was not a thing, okay? So yeah, the radio. So that's where I started to absorb some Iloco language into my, language system. That's how I understand the deep Iloco, all right? There are a lot of deep Iloco languages that were being used by, the drama, the stories on radio. And because I have been a fan of dramas, keep on listening for it for a long time, I keep on absorbing new things, all right? But the fact I can't use it, I cannot use those deep Ilocos if I spoke. I don't know how. I don't know why. It will not come out from my mouth. But if I listened, if I hear it, I would understand. Okay? I would understand like 80%, 90% of the Iloco deep words. I can understand those. But I wouldn't speak it, and I don't understand. So if I speak with a native Ilocano, I would understand like almost everything. But if I talk or answer back, I would speak the Cordillera Ilocano. Until now, actually. Until now. All right, so my Ilocano friends and igorot kakailians, that's it. We should celebrate our friendships. We celebrate our connections, and we just appreciate life. We should appreciate each other, because back then we were actually friends. Our ancestors were friends. So peace to everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting FDG Stages. We upload a lot of variety videos, from short films to vlogs to documentary and commentaries. So it's basically a stage of everything in the celebration of igorot culture. A lot of topics, wide topics, everything. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you on the next video. Cheers.